Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy, speaking to you from the land of Israel. Today we're about to discuss a question concerning China and concerning the USA and concerning the lost 10 tribes of Israel. Originally there were 12 tribes of Israel. These 12 tribes divided into two separate sections. The 10 tribes were in the north mostly, and the other tribes were in the south. From the southern tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and later Levi and minority sections of the other tribes emerged the present-day Jewish people. From the northern tribes, the 10 tribes, came peoples who created Western civilization. Peoples who created Western civilization, the Western peoples. And not everyone in these areas is descended from Israel. Not all of them are Hebrews, but a good portion of them are. And they have helped determine the characteristics of the peoples in those regions. And they are mentioned in biblical prophecy, and they have a task to play in the world. And they have fulfilled this task to some degree and are continuing to do so. And they are spoken about in biblical prophecy, and they are important. And these peoples include the 10 tribes. They include peoples in Scandinavia, that is in Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, in the Netherlands, Luxembourg, in Belgium, France, Switzerland, in Ireland, Northern Ireland, in Wales, in Scotland, in England, and in the offshoots overseas in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, and elsewhere. They are the lost 10 tribes of Israel. And they have a task to fulfill in the world. And amongst this task, or this Yaud, this destiny, promised blessings that were given unto them, are included the blessing to rule over the gates of their enemies, or the gate of those who hate them, to rule over strategic entry passes, or entry routes, or strategic overlooking advantageous points that give them access to their enemies, or prevent their enemies, or give them some control over those who are potentially to be adverse towards them. And this blessing is being fulfilled. We may see a fulfillment of this blessing in the present-day relationship or geopolitical strategic set-up, arrangement, layout, one could say, in world affairs of the USA and China. We have China. China today is the most populous nation in the earth. It has more people than any other people. 1,500 million people. That is China. China has more people than the USA, has more people than any other nation on earth. Really, actually, the northern Chinese are different origins from the southern Chinese, also other ethnicities in China, but they all speak the same Chinese language and all have the same culture and national psychology to some degree. And they are therefore, for all purposes, they may be considered one entity, one people. The economy of China is one of the world's fastest growing. It's an annual growth rate of about 6%, and it is increasing all the time. It is the largest economy in the world by purchasing power. It buys more from other countries than any other people on the earth, and therefore it has a leeway, it has influence over them because of this, because it buys from them, supports them, as it is their customer. It can also have certain expectations towards them, or from them. China is a nuclear power. The Chinese are intelligent, they're hard-working, they're studious, they are determined, disciplined, and they are patient. They are prepared to take their time, to wait for a long time, to make long-term plans until they realise their aims. And they are also prepared to take defeats, to take setbacks and keep going. This is what the Chinese are, and this is what Chinese history tells us. China today is investing all over the earth. Everywhere in the earth, China is buying things up, buying up things. In Israel, it's buying up companies. And that is only relatively at a low level. Even though it is a cause for concern, it is at a low level compared to elsewhere. China is buying up whole nations or whole sections of nations in some cases. China has invested in any infrastructure projects around Eurasia and Africa. It has railways and pipelines and the ports, whole ports, seaports in Pakistan, in Ceylon, all over the earth. The potential enemies of China are India, Japan and South Korea. The allies of China, Russia, North Korea, Iran and others. China is allies to the enemies of America. China needs the USA. China is also against the USA. China is both seeking to undermine the USA, to replace the USA. On the one hand, on the other hand, because the USA is a major customer of China and in many ways helps maintain the Chinese economy and its ongoing progress, China also needs America. So China towards America is in a delicate situation. Nevertheless, China is a threat to the USA, seeking to replace the USA. It supports and strengthens the most virulent enemies of the USA, and China is dangerous. And so we should know this. China has invested all over the earth, especially in certain regions. It needs to maintain its resources, the source of its resources. China needs petroleum, needs oil. China needs oil. That is what keeps the Chinese economy going. China has no oil or very little oil of its own. Most of the oil that China needs comes to it from the Middle East, and it has to reach China via the Malacca Straits, just between Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia. That is where all the ships, transports bearing petroleum from the Middle East pass through. And the USA has a base there, and China has to send its oil through that area, and it could easily be closed down by the USA, and if it did so, the Chinese economy would collapse within a few months. And now China is bases all over the region. It is attempting to ensure the security of its supply sources and of its routes of transport. And also against India. India is a rival of China. India also has bases in the area. India is a potential enemy, antagonist to China. China could probably quite easily, or with a certain degree of surety, take out all of the Indian bases, but the USA also has bases in the region. The USA has an important base, actually a British base that the USA has control of, called Diogo Garcia in the Indian Ocean, and that in effect ensures the security of the Indian bases, and that gives both the USA and India a kind of stranglehold or guarantee over China that China will behave itself within reason. And China doesn't like this, but there's nothing that can be done about it. And this is one aspect of the gates of those who descend from the lost 10 tribes of Israel, possessing the gates of their enemies, of the gate of those who hate them. That is important strategic passes, important strategic areas. And this promise was given to Abraham, and after that to Rebekah, the wife of Isaac, concerning her descendants through Isaac, and therefore through Israel. And this is one of the identifying aspects of the USA, having a good portion of the lost 10 tribes, that is descendants of Joseph, who received a special portion of these blessings. And so this helps confirm, along with hundreds of other proofs, that the USA today represents the lost 10 tribes, along with other peoples in Western Europe,